For the first time in over a half century, the Detroit Pistons will be picking first in the NBA draft.
Number one start.
Hey, that's what we do. I came here for the game. I came here for the sport.
Most experts expect that selection to be silky smooth guard Cade Cunningham.
Cade Cunningham goes up off the glass and in.
But this draft has star potential 1 through 5, including former USC big man Evan Mobley, who's already a force on both ends of the floor and is even being compared to Anthony Davis. And then there's Jalen Suggs, who became a household name in the NCAA tournament. Also a two-way player who should instantly improve any team that picks him.
Jalen, showtime, goes up high, hammers home the dunk.
This draft also has a steady G League presence with Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga, who both offer tantalizing upside. And the player who elevated his draft stock the most this past year might be Davion Mitchell, who not only led the Baylor Bears to their first national title, but also took home the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year award.
Davion Mitchell in the open court, you give him a head of steam, he is going to finish at the rim.
We know who they are, but where will they go? The NBA's next wave of stars heading to a new horizon.
Shout out to Chris Hassel for setting the stage for the NBA draft tonight. And on CBS Sports HQ, it's presented by Jeep. Our coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern with Eric Kusilius and Hakeem Dermish, and our host of analysts, Rip Hamilton, Matt Norlander, Avery Johnson, Bill Ryder, Colin Ward-Henniger, and the guys from 24/7 Sports. And also our college basketball insider, Gary Parrish, going to be a part of our coverage here. But for now, we're taking a gambling perspective, Gary. And when we take a look at Cade Cunningham, he is 80-1. You have to lay down that much for him to be the number one overall pick. And I know there's Jalen Green, and there's Evan Mobley and Jalen Suggs, but how much of a deciding factor of number one is Cade Cunningham for you?
I think it's pretty clear cut at this point. I'd be a little uneasy laying 80-1 because we've been surprised at the top of the draft before, but there is no indication whatsoever from Detroit or anywhere else that anybody other than Cade Cunningham is going to be the number one pick. And honestly, he should be. He's a 6'8" point guard who can play on the ball or off the ball. He can guard multiple positions. He led the nation in clutch points, so he's built for the big moments that you want superstars to be built for. There's just a lot of stuff to love about Cade Cunningham. Very few things that concern you. And yes, barring a massive surprise later tonight, he will be the first pick of the 2021 NBA draft.
All right, if someone was trying to get on the Cade Cunningham action but maybe wants to limit their exposure, you have a play of actually an exact scenario of 1, 2, and 3 where you only have to lay 4-1. So if it's Cunningham at 1, then who is it at 2 and 3?
I think it's Jalen Green at 2 and Evan Mobley at 3. There's no doubt in my mind that those are going to be the first three players picked. There's a little question about whether it's Jalen Green or Evan Mobley at number 2. But if you're the Houston Rockets, you really need to add a superstar scorer. You've had them in your franchise. You know, James Harden being the most obvious example. Chris Paul came through. Russell Westbrook came through. Right now, you've got none. And Jalen Green, in my opinion, is the guy not named Cade Cunningham in this draft who's got the best chance to be a superstar. He's a natural and elite scorer, 6'5", terrific athlete, competent three-point shooter already. And, you know, he wasn't on a big stage like Jalen Suggs at Gonzaga or a player at Duke or North Carolina or Kentucky. But he played in that G League for the G League Ignite and performed impressively against grown men, players much older than him, guys who have been in the NBA, guys who are former college All-Americans. You know, Jalen Green has suggested, if not flat out said, that if he played college basketball and showed the nation twice a week what he's capable of, there's some thought that he would be more in consideration for the number one pick in this draft. And I think there's maybe some truth to that. So if I'm Houston, I'm happy to take him at number 2. I feel sick about passing on Evan Mobley, but if you can only take one of them, I'm taking Jalen Green. And then Mobley is a no-brainer pick for Cleveland at 3. So yeah, I feel good about that. Cade Cunningham going first, Jalen Green second, Evan Mobley going third.
That's a cheaper price, 4-1. I saw Jalen Green as a freshman, San Joaquin Memorial High School, before he went to the Napa Valley to prep school. And, of course, you mentioned the 1 year in G League. So 1, 2, and 3, any of those combinations as we put up the odds from William Hill. Then there's 4. Again, Jalen Suggs grouped in with those other 3. The talk is about whether he goes 4 to Toronto, and he is the betting favorite, William Hill, minus 225. You going chalk there, or do you have another pick for us?
I'm going chalk there. I believe for a while that there are 4 players that you've got to consider at the tip top of this draft. Obviously, as noted, I lean towards Cade Cunningham. And if you go Jalen Green 2, Evan Mobley 3, I'm not saying it's crazy to take anybody other than Jalen Suggs. Giannis Antetokounmpo was picked 15th once upon a time in a draft. If he'd have been picked 4th, somebody would have said that's crazy. And they would have looked crazy with the benefit of hindsight. So I'm not going to speak in absolutes about that. But if I were Toronto, I'd have a really hard time passing on Jalen Suggs. He's a two-way point guard with size who, helped Gonzaga march all the way to the national title game. He knew when to blend in with his teammates. He knew when to take over. He's a guy who can, because of his football background, see passes that other point guards can't see, and then make passes that other point guards can't make, much like he did as a high school quarterback. And then on the defensive end, we saw it all in the NCAA tournament. He can pin balls off the backboard, grab rebounds, take it in transition himself, beat everybody down the court. He's just a tip-top athlete who's all about the right things. I've spent time in recent weeks, months, talking to Gonzaga coach Mark Few about him, former Gonzaga assistant Tommy Lloyd about him. They have nothing but great things to say, and not just about the stuff you can see in the games. That's easy. Everything off the court checks the right boxes. If you're Toronto and you've got an opportunity to select Jalen Suggs, and I think Toronto will, you put him in a backcourt with Fred VanVleet, and you feel real good about your future.
All right, let's move on to number 5, the Magic, the Thunder, the Warriors. They all have multiple picks in the first round, Gary, but let's focus on 5. So after the 4 that we've talked about there, we're taking a look at the odds right now. Scotty Barnes is the betting favorite. We talked about Jonathan Kuminga and James Bouknight, guys that are sort of rising as we near draft night tonight. What's the play and what's the pick for you?
I think Scotty Barnes is going to be the 5th pick in tonight's NBA draft, but I don't know how confidently I feel about that, if only because, and I say this with all due respect to Scotty Barnes, who I really, really, really like, I wouldn't take him 5th in this draft. I think if I were selecting there, I would really bet on the guy that's got a chance to be special because of all of the physical tools and the athleticism, and that is, Jonathan Kuminga. So if I'm interested in Kuminga there, and I also could lay out a scenario where I'd pull the trigger on James Bouknight there, even if I like Scotty Barnes, I don't know if I'm willing to lay that number to get that done, even though I do think Scotty Barnes ultimately will be picked 5th in this draft. And all of the intel in basketball circles in recent days suggests that Orlando is prepared to make that a reality.
All right, Gary, let's wrap things up with a couple of prop bets. So we're going to focus on a couple players. You give us the over-under, given what the book, this case William Hill, has, and it's Corey Kispert, over-under 13.5.
I think it's going to be under, even though if I were in charge, I would put it over. I like Corey Kispert. He's obviously an accomplished college basketball player. His coaching staff absolutely loved him. They identified him very early on as the best shooter in college basketball, and now he's widely regarded as the best shooter in this NBA draft. But Tommy, you watched that national championship game, and when he was having to play against real athletes, NBA-level athletes, he struggled. And it wasn't just that he was missing shots. That's not concerning at all. He'll make the shots. He couldn't get the shots. He couldn't bounce it. He couldn't get free, and he really struggled guarding in space. They kept putting him in pick and rolls, and he couldn't guard his position. And if you can't guard your position against Baylor, good luck trying to guard NBA wings. And if you can't guard NBA wings, it's hard for you to be a major player in that league. So I'm a little lower on Kispert than most people are. But, Charlotte has reportedly identified him as a real weapon playing with LaMelo Ball. This is where you draft somewhat for fit. Gordon Hayward has missed 48 regular season games the past 2 seasons in Charlotte. Just in general. So they need some depth on the wing. And if you've got an incredible playmaker and setup guy like LaMelo Ball, I can actually understand how having Corey Kispert on the court with him could be valuable because, in that scenario, maybe you don't need Kispert to be much more than a catch-and-shoot guy because LaMelo is going to get him clean looks over and over again. So, again, I do not think Corey Kispert is one of the 13 best prospects in this draft from my perspective. I wouldn't take him in the lottery, but it appears, all indications are that somebody is going to, and it could be the Charlotte Hornets.
All right, Gary, get you got on this here quickly here. Luka Garza, Player of the Year, over under 54.5.
I'm going to go under, but it's going to be close. I mean, it's right in that range, and going undrafted is also a possibility. But I guess I would say about Luka Garza what a really smart NBA scout said to me one time. He said the biggest mistake people in our business make when evaluating prospects is sometimes you get too caught up in what somebody can't do, not focusing enough on what they actually can do. And if you do that with Luka Garza, you're going to get turned off real quick. He's heavy-footed. He's not a great athlete. He is going to have trouble guarding in space in the modern NBA. I don't even think Luka would argue with anything I said. But man, he does some things really, really well. He's a monster around the rim, scoring on the block, rebounding, getting second shots, and then he showed in this final season at Iowa that he can comfortably and confidently step out to the three-point line and make that shot. He's not going to live out there because that runs counter to what his actual advantages are. But in the modern NBA, you prefer to have a big that can step out, make a shot, and create space, and he can make that shot. The issues are going to be on the defensive end, and they'll probably never go away. But I'm just going to trust that one of these 30 franchises, that really, lives by the analytics and understands that he led the entire country in player efficiency rating as a senior at Iowa. Somebody, I think, can pull the trigger on him in the early 50s, and if so, then that under bet, it becomes a winner.
All right, take a flyer. You never know. Maybe you reap the rewards of taking that selection there. Gary Parrish, certainly appreciate it. Catch him tonight on our NBA draft coverage. It's On the Clock, presented by Jeep. 7:30. Eric Casillas, Hakeem Dermish, and all of our stable of guests, including Gary Parrish, Matt Norlander, Rip Hamilton, Bill Ryder, and the guys at 24/7 Sports.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.